The first time the flood came, I jumped into the water for Audrey Hart. That was how my first life ended. Not quickly. People think a life ends when the heart stops. That is the clean version, the dramatic version, the version that fits in a headline, a funeral program, or a sad song. My first life ended slower. It ended in a mountain creek that had turned into a brown, roaring wall of water. It ended with my left knee twisting under debris. It ended with my shoulder tearing out of place while Derek Walsh clawed at me to keep himself above the current. It ended with Audrey screaming his name while I was the one sinking. It ended in a hospital bed, where I woke up to the smell of disinfectant and the sound of rain against the window, only to learn that the people I had nearly died saving had already started telling a different story. Derek said I shoved him. Audrey said I lost control. They said I was jealous. They said I went into the water not to save Derek, but to hurt him. They said I had been unstable for weeks because Audrey wanted to leave me. They said I ignored her when she begged me to calm down. They said I grabbed Derek too hard, dragged him under, and only stopped because rescuers pulled me away. I remembered the truth. I remembered Derek's car stalling halfway across the old service bridge. I remembered Audrey running into the current before anyone could stop her. I remembered grabbing the rescue rope from the campground shed. I remembered going into the water after her because she was slipping. I remembered her screaming, "Save him, Ethan, please save Derek." I remembered reaching Derek's car, remembered his hand around my collar, remembered the panic in his face. I remembered the way he pushed down on my shoulder to lift himself higher, remembered swallowing creek water. I remembered a piece of debris slamming into my knee. I remembered the pain flashing white. I remembered Audrey wrapped around Derek after the rescue while I lay on the mud with broken ribs, a torn ligament, a dislocated shoulder, and water in my lungs. But memory is not evidence. That was the first lesson of my first life. Truth without record is just a voice people can choose not to hear. The official investigation eventually cleared me of criminal intent. Eventually, that word is another kind of injury. Eventually came after Derek's father hired lawyers. Eventually came after Audrey gave a tearful statement saying I had become possessive and frightening during the final weeks before graduation. Eventually came after local news ran the clip of me being restrained by firefighters while shouting Derek's name. The clip did not show me dragging Derek from the car. It did not show Derek pushing me under. It did not show Audrey running into the current for him. It did not show me coughing blood into the mud. It showed 10 seconds. 10 seconds was enough. The university froze my graduate research offer. The fellowship committee withdrew my overseas placement because of unresolved public safety concerns. My startup accelerator slot disappeared. The hospital bills stacked up. My knee never fully healed. My shoulder clicked when it rained. People stopped saying I was guilty after the investigation ended. That did not mean they trusted me. They said things like, "It was a complicated situation. I heard he was cleared, but still, floods make people emotional. You never know what happens in relationships." Complicated, that word followed me for years. Complicated is what powerful people call a lie when they want the victim to share the blame. Audrey stayed with Derek long enough to give interviews about trauma and survival. Derek played the shaken survivor. He spoke about the importance of mental health, toxic relationships, and learning to forgive. He forgave me publicly for something I had not done. That was his real masterpiece. 2 years later, Audrey divorced him quietly. 3 years later, she sent me a message, "I'm sorry, I was scared." I never replied. By then, sorry was a wet match. It could not light anything. My life did not become dramatic after that. It became small. That was worse. I worked in a technical support role far below what I had trained for. I walked with a slight limp when the weather changed. I avoided rivers. I avoided campus reunions. I avoided searching my own name. I avoided every version of the person I used to be, because he was still standing in that water. Believing love meant self-sacrifice even when the person he loved was screaming another man's name. The night I died, or the night the universe finally decided I had paid enough for one mistake, rain was hitting my apartment window. The weather alert on my phone said flash flooding was possible in Silverpine County, the same mountains, the same creek. I stared at the warning until my knee started aching like it remembered before I did. Then the lights flickered, the room tilted, and everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was standing beside a stack of coolers at Silverpine Campground. Rain tapped softly against the blue canopy overhead. Someone laughed near the picnic tables. Someone opened a bag of chips. A portable speaker played a pop song I had not heard in years. My phone buzzed in my hand. County alert. Flash flood watch. Heavy rainfall expected. avoid low-water crossings, prepare to evacuate if conditions worsen. For a few seconds, I could not breathe. Silverpine. Graduation weekend, the old service bridge, the flood. I turned slowly. Audrey Hart stood 20 feet away near the picnic tables, wearing a yellow rain jacket, her blonde hair pulled into a loose ponytail. She was laughing at something Derek Walsh whispered into her ear. Derek stood too close, his hand rested briefly at the small of her back. She did not move away. My chest went cold, not from shock. I already knew, that was the cruel part of rebirth. It did not make betrayal disappear. It made you watch it again with perfect memory. Audrey looked up and caught me watching. For half a second, guilt crossed her face, then she smiled, the same smile from my first life. Ethan, she called. Can you help unload the last bags? Derek looked over her shoulder at me. His smile was lazy, almost amused. In my first life, I had suspected something was wrong but did not know how to name it yet. There had been messages turned face down, sudden laughter that stopped when I entered, excuses about group meetings, Derek's jacket on Audrey's chair, Audrey saying I was overthinking every time I noticed. This time, I knew everything. Derek knew I knew something too. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted me to react. He wanted the weekend to become a contest, his car against my old pickup, his family name against my scholarships, his confidence against my concern. Audrey between us. He thought I would lose because I cared too much. In my first life, he was right. This time, I looked down at the county alert again. The rain was still light, but the sky over the mountain ridge had gone dark gray. The upper slopes were disappearing behind mist. Water already ran in narrow brown threads along the dirt road toward the lower fire pit. I put the cooler down. No, I said. Audrey blinked. What? I'm not unloading anything else. Everyone needs to pack up. Derek laughed. Here we go. I ignored him and raised my voice. Flash flood watch just came through. This campground sits below 2 runoff channels. The creek rises fast. The service bridge floods first. We need to leave before the road cuts off. A few classmates looked at their phones. Some frowned, some shrugged. Tyler Banks, one of Derek's friends, lifted a beer can. It's a watch, not a warning. Mike Reynolds stepped out from under the canopy with a bag of chips in one hand. Mike had been my best friend in both lives, loud, loyal, allergic to rich boy arrogance, and weirdly excellent under pressure as long as he had something to complain about. A watch means conditions are forming, Mike said. A warning means the mountain is already trying to kill you. Personally, I prefer leaving before nature files paperwork. Tyler rolled his eyes. Derek walked toward me. Miller, relax. We paid for the site. The storm will pass. I looked at him. The bridge will flood. He smiled. You a weather prophet now? No. I met his eyes. I just know what happens when arrogant men drive into moving water. His smile faded for half a second. Audrey stepped between us. Ethan, don't start. That sentence nearly made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was so exactly her. Not Derek. Stop provoking him. Not everyone. Check the alert. Not maybe we should leave. Ethan, don't start. The old Ethan would have argued with her. He would have explained. He would have tried to make her understand that fear was not control, that caution was not jealousy, that a flood did not care whose car looked expensive. This time, I nodded. You're right. She looked relieved. Then I turned away and called 911. Derek straightened. What are you doing? Reporting the situation. Tyler laughed. He's calling the cops on rain. The dispatcher answered. I gave the location clearly. Silverpine Campground, Lower Loop, approximately 19 students still on site, flash flood watch active, runoff already visible near Lower Road. Old service bridge is the main concern. Some students refusing to evacuate. Audrey stared at me. Derek's face hardened. The dispatcher asked me to confirm whether anyone was currently injured or trapped. No, I said, not yet. That word slipped out before I could stop it. Mike looked at me sharply. The dispatcher said county emergency management advised evacuation from low-lying campgrounds and warned against attempting to cross flooded roads or bridges. I put the call on speaker. Her voice came through clearly. Sir, please move to higher ground or leave while roads remain passable. Do not attempt to cross moving water. If the bridge is covered, do not drive through it. Several students stopped laughing. I looked at the group. You heard her. Derek crossed his arms. This is ridiculous. I kept the call open long enough to receive the incident number, then ended it. After that, I opened my camera and began recording. Audrey stepped closer, lowering her voice. Ethan, you're making everyone uncomfortable. Good. Her eyes widened. Good. fear is useful before water arrives, Derek snorted. You just want to control the weekend. I turned the camera toward him. Say that again. He noticed the red recording that his smile shifted. You're recording now, pathetic. Clear, I said. What? It's clear. Audrey's face changed. She did not like clarity, neither did Derek. In my first life, they survived on confusion. This time, every word would have a place. Within 15 minutes, half the group packed, not because everyone suddenly respected me, because Mike became aggressively educational. He pulled up county flood maps. He showed runoff channels. He showed an article about a car swept off the same bridge 6 years earlier. He quoted, "Turn around, don't drown." With the intensity of a man who had found his life's purpose in annoying irresponsible people into survival. 2 cars left, then another. Amber Lee hesitated near the canopy, looking at Audrey. Audrey, maybe we should go. Audrey glanced at Derek. Derek shook his head. Amber stayed. That was how social gravity worked. People did not always follow the smartest person, they followed the person they wanted approval from. The rain grew heavier, the dirt road darkened, water began pooling near the lower fire pit. I packed my truck. Mike threw his bag into the passenger seat. Audrey watched me. You're leaving? Yes. Just like that. The county said evacuate. Her mouth tightened. Derek walked to his Mercedes and opened the driver's door. Fine, we'll leave too, since Miller needs a parade of obedience. I looked toward the road. Take the upper road. Derek smiled. The service bridge is faster. It floods first. You've mentioned. Do not cross if water covers it. He leaned against the car. Thanks. Dad. Audrey looked between us. Derek, maybe we should take the upper road. For one brief second, I thought maybe this life could change without blood. Then Derek laughed. And sit in mud for an hour because Ethan is scared. Audrey looked at me, then at Derek's car, then at the classmates still nearby. I knew that look. Pride is quieter than love and stronger than fear when an audience is watching. She got into Derek's passenger seat. I felt the old ache, not surprise, not jealousy exactly, a dull pain, like watching someone step toward a cliff after begging you not to call it a cliff because the view is pretty. Mike got into my truck. Ethan, he said quietly, we can still follow them. I started the engine. We will take the upper road. What if he tries the bridge? I already called emergency services. I warned him. I'm recording. I am not going into the water. Mike studied my face. Something in it must have told him not to joke. He nodded. Okay. We drove toward the upper road. Derek's Mercedes went the other way, toward the service bridge. Of course it did. I pulled over at the high turnout above the creek. From there, the old service bridge was visible through the trees and rain. The creek below had already swollen into a fast brown channel. Water slammed around rocks and tree roots. Branches rushed downstream, spinning in the current. Mike stepped out beside me. Bad, yes, worse than bad, soon. Derek's headlights appeared on the far side of the service road. The Mercedes stopped before the bridge. For one hopeful second, I thought he would reverse, then he drove forward. Mike whispered, "Idiot." The front tires entered the water. The bridge was not fully submerged yet, but water already crossed in sheets. Anyone with sense would know that moving water hides depth, speed, and road damage. Derek did not have sense. He had an audience. The Mercedes reached the middle, then stopped, not dramatically at first, just a pause. Then the back end shifted. The current pushed against the tires. The engine died. Audrey's passenger door opened. She stepped out into knee-deep water and almost fell. My whole body screamed at me to run. Memory is not only in the mind. My muscles remembered the first life, the sprint, the cold shock of water, the rope burning my hands, the pain, the mud. Audrey screaming, Derek grabbing. The old Ethan was still inside me, trying to move. This time, I grabbed my phone. I called 911 again. Silverpine Service Bridge. Vehicle stalled in floodwater. 2 occupants. Water rising. We are on high ground at the upper turnout. Rescue access should use the upper road. Lower road may be compromised. The dispatcher confirmed rescue units were already en route because of my earlier call. I gave updates: vehicle type, occupants, water speed, visible hazards. Then I turned on video. Mike grabbed the emergency rope from behind my truck seat. I stopped him. Not from here. He looked at me. I'm not going in. I'm anchoring it if they reach the bank. That was fair. We moved down only as far as the marked high bank, staying above the warning sign and away from the mud edge. I kept recording. Mike tied the rope around the thick trunk of a pine and checked the knot twice. Audrey was screaming now. Derek, get out. Derek had climbed halfway through the driver's side window. Water slammed against the car doors. The Mercedes shifted slightly. metal groaning against the current. Audrey tried to move toward him. I shouted, "Audrey, stay on the bridge rail. Do not step into the current." She turned. For one moment, her eyes met mine. There was fear now, real fear. "Ethan, help him, rescue is coming, move back to the bank, help him, do not enter the current." Derek shouted something from the car. The rain swallowed most of it, but I heard enough. "Audrey, get me." Audrey took another step. The water hit her thighs. I shouted again, louder, "Audrey, if you go in, you will be swept off the bridge." She looked at Derek, then at me. Then she ran toward him. Mike cursed beside me. The current caught her. Before she reached the car, it knocked her sideways into the bridge rail. She grabbed the metal with both hands, screaming as water slammed against her legs. Derek reached toward her, not to pull her safe, to use her. I saw it clearly this time. In my first life, I had been in the water by then. I had seen only panic. I had given everyone the benefit of fear, but fear reveals character. Derek grabbed Audrey's sleeve and used her weight to pull himself higher against the car frame. Audrey screamed as her grip slipped on the rail. I kept recording. My hands shook, but I did not cross the line, not because I wanted them to die, because I had already died once for people who turned survival into accusation. Mike threw the rope toward the bridge rail, not into the middle current. It landed near Audrey, floating and bouncing against the water. "Grab the rope," I shouted. "Move back toward the rail. Do not go toward the car." Audrey looked at it. Then Derek screamed her name again. She turned back to him. The rope drifted past her hand. Mike whispered, "She's choosing him." "Yes," I said. My voice sounded cold. Maybe cold is what remains when panic finally learns. The first rescue siren sounded in the distance. Audrey tried again to reach Derek. The current tore her from the rail. For one terrible second, she disappeared under brown water. Then she slammed against a fallen branch caught near the edge of the bridge. Her head came up. She coughed, screamed. The sound tore through me. I stepped forward without thinking. Mike grabbed my arm. "Ethan, one word." "Enough." I stopped. I pointed my camera toward Audrey's position and shouted to the dispatcher, still on speaker, "Female swept from bridge, pinned against debris near downstream left edge, conscious, male still on vehicle, rescue sirens audible." The dispatcher told me to stay clear, keep visual contact, and not enter the water. That mattered. I repeated it aloud. "Do not enter the water. Rescue is arriving, not for Audrey, not for Derek. For myself, for the old version of me still trying to drown." The first rescue truck arrived from the upper road, then a second. Firefighters ran down with proper lines, helmets, flotation gear, and anchored systems. One of them shouted at us to stay back. I raised both hands. "Female pinned near branch, male on vehicle window." He nodded. They moved fast, professional, anchored, trained, not heartbroken students with rope and guilt. They got Audrey first because she was closer to going under. 2 firefighters clipped into the line and moved along the bank edge. Another anchored from higher ground. A fourth guided from the bridge approach. Audrey screamed when they reached her, still trying to twist toward Derek. "Save Derek, please save Derek." The firefighter ignored the emotional order and followed rescue priority. They pulled her free. She came up coughing mud-colored water, one sleeve torn, hair plastered to her face, yellow jacket soaked dark. They dragged her up the bank and wrapped her in a thermal blanket. She was alive. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. Then the team moved for Derek. He was still halfway out the driver window, clinging to the door frame. The Mercedes shifted again. A floating log struck the rear bumper. Derek screamed, "Hurry." One rescuer reached him with a secured line. Derek grabbed at the man's vest, panicked and wild. "Don't grab the rescuer." Another firefighter shouted. Derek did it anyway. For a second, both of them lurched. The anchored line held. They pulled Derek off the car and dragged him through the current toward the bank. He coughed, cursed, slipped, grabbed, and fought the people saving him because panic made him selfish faster than danger made him humble. Finally, they hauled him onto the mud. No one died. That mattered. No one died because trained rescuers arrived, because I called early, because I gave the location clearly, because I did not become a second or third victim, because I did not confuse love with a suicide order. Audrey lay under a blanket, shivering. Derek sat near the rescue truck, coughing and shaking. A county deputy walked toward me. "You called it in?" "Yes." "Name?" "Ethan Miller." "Were you with the group?" "Yes." "I warned them to evacuate after the first alert." "I called earlier too. Incident number should be attached to my phone." He nodded. "Did you enter the water?" "No." "Did anyone warn the driver not to cross?" "Yes." Multiple times, I have video. Audrey heard that, her eyes snapped toward me. There it was, the beginning of a story, the first instinct to look for narrative before accountability. Before she could speak, Mike stepped beside me. I also recorded from the turnout. Ethan called 911 before the crossing and again after the vehicle stalled. He warned Derek not to drive across and warned Audrey not to enter the current. We threw a rope toward the rail from safe ground. The deputy nodded. Good. Send copies. Derek coughed violently, then looked up. This is his fault. Audrey froze, not because she disagreed, because the accusation came too soon. The deputy turned toward Derek. Derek pointed at me with a shaking hand. He distracted us. He was yelling. He wanted this on video. In my first life, that accusation came later, after the hospital, after the lawyers, after he knew which story worked. This time, he made it while still covered in creek mud. The deputy looked at me, then at Mike, then at the firefighters, then at the bridge, then at Derek. You drove into moving water. Derek's face tightened. I thought it was shallow, after being warned. Derek said nothing. I held out my phone. It's recorded. Derek's eyes filled with hatred. Audrey stared at me from under the blanket. Ethan, she whispered. I looked at her. In my first life, I crawled through mud toward her even after she chose him. This time, I stayed where I was. You need medical attention. I said, no softness, no anger, just fact. Her face crumpled. Maybe she finally understood. I was not coming into the water, not for Derek, not for her, not again. The ambulance took Audrey and Derek to the county hospital. Mike and I stayed to give statements. The deputy copied our videos. The fire captain asked me to describe the timeline again. I did. First alert, warning to group. First 911 call, evacuation attempt, Derek choosing service bridge. Second call, vehicle stalled, Audrey entering water, rope throw, rescue arrival. The captain listened carefully, then said, you did right not going in. That sentence hit harder than I expected. I had spent years in my first life being haunted by the idea that I had not done enough, even though I had done too much. Now a professional looked me in the eye and said the thing no one had said before: the damage. You did right not going in. I nodded. Thank you. Mike looked away. For once, he did not make a joke. By nightfall, the official incident outline was already clean. Clean, that word became sacred to me. Caller Ethan Miller reported flood risk at 3:42 p.m. Caller warned group to evacuate. Video showed Derek Walsh attempting to cross flooded service bridge. After warning, video showed Audrey Hart exiting vehicle area and entering moving water. Against direct warning, video showed Ethan Miller remaining on high ground, calling emergency services, providing location details, and throwing a rope toward a safe rail position. Fire captain statement: civilian entry into water would likely have created additional rescue victims. No evidence of assault, interference, or reckless conduct by Ethan Miller. Clean. Derek tried to spin the story that same night. Of course he did. He posted from the hospital. Some people record when others are fighting for their lives. No names, enough implication. In my first life, that post would have ruined me. This time, I did nothing. Mike saw it and almost vibrated out of his chair. Permission? No. Just one reply? No. One elegant correction? No. He looked physically ill. Professor Harper called before he could continue arguing. Do not engage online, she said. I wasn't going to, I answered. I was speaking to Michael. Mike leaned toward the phone. I feel unfairly profiled, Professor Harper said. Accurately profiled. He went quiet. Professor Harper continued. The county report will matter more than social media. Preserve copies. Do not contact Audrey or Derek. Do not apologize for not entering floodwater. That last sentence struck me. Did someone say I should? Someone always will, she said. Ignore them. The university opened a safety review the next morning because students had been involved in a flood rescue during graduation weekend. Derek expected his father to control the room. Richard Walsh was a trustee at Northbridge University. His family name sat on the business school lounge, the entrepreneurship prize, and several donor plaques around campus. In my first life, his influence had slowed the truth long enough for lies to harden. This time, the county report arrived before his lawyers did. So did the 911 recordings, so did Mike's video, so did my video, so did statements. From students who left after my warning, so did the campground manager's statement that the service bridge was known to flood rapidly and that a warning cone had been placed near the lower road approach after the first alert. Then came the security footage. A campground maintenance camera had caught Derek's Mercedes driving around that warning cone. That changed everything. Derek had not simply misjudged water. He had ignored a visible warning. The safety review hearing took place in a conference room at the county emergency office, not on campus. That helped. Northbridge donor politics did not fill the walls there. The people in that room cared about roads, bridges, alerts, response times, rescue risk, and whether a 22-year-old idiot in a Mercedes had forced firefighters into water because his pride did not like detours. Audrey sat with her arm in a sling. She had bruises along one side of her face and a bandage on her wrist. Her eyes stayed low. Derek sat beside his father, clean-shaven, pale, and angry. He looked less like a survivor now and more like a man upset that reality had not signed his version of events. The county investigator played the first 911 call. My voice filled the room. Silverpine Campground, Lower Loop, approximately 19 students still on site, flash flood watch active, runoff already visible near Lower Road. Old service bridge is the main concern. Some students refusing to evacuate. Then the dispatcher's warning, do not attempt to cross moving water. Then my video from the campground, my voice warning the group. Derek saying the service bridge was faster, me saying it floods first, Derek saying, thanks, Dad. Then the turnout video, the Mercedes stopping, then driving into water, then stalling, Audrey stepping out, me shouting, stay on the bridge rail, do not step into the current, Audrey running toward Derek, the current taking her, the rope thrown toward the rail. My second 911 call, the rescue, Derek grabbing at the firefighter. The room was silent. When the video ended, Derek's lawyer cleared his throat. My client was under extreme stress. He believed he could safely cross before conditions worsened. Mr. Miller's presence and shouting may have contributed to confusion. The fire captain, sitting near the end of the table, looked up. No, one word, flat. Derek's lawyer blinked. The captain continued, Mr. Miller's warnings were appropriate. His 911 calls improved response. His video helped identify victim locations. His decision not to enter moving water prevented additional risk. Derek's jaw tightened. Audrey's eyes filled. The investigator asked Derek, why did you choose the service bridge after warning? Derek said, I thought it was passable. Why drive around the warning cone? His face changed. I didn't see it. The investigator played the maintenance camera footage. The Mercedes slowed near the cone, paused, then drove around it. No one spoke. Derek's father leaned back slowly. The investigator asked Audrey, did Mr. Miller warn you not to enter the current? Audrey swallowed. Yes. Did you hear him? Yes. Why did you go in? Her hands shook. Derek called for me. Did Mr. Miller physically interfere with you, Derek Walsh, or any rescue personnel? No. Derek turned sharply toward her. Audrey. She did not look at him. The investigator asked, did Mr. Miller attempt to help from a safe position? Audrey closed her eyes. Yes. How? He called rescue. He warned us. He threw a rope. Her voice broke on the last word. Derek whispered, you don't have to say it like that. Audrey finally turned to him. He did those things. That was the first time in 2 lives that she chose the truth before it became useless. The safety review conclusion came quickly. Derek Walsh was found responsible for violating emergency guidance, bypassing a posted warning cone, and creating unnecessary rescue risk. Audrey Hart was found to have entered dangerous moving water against direct warning but was treated as a victim in the emergency response. Ethan Miller was found to have acted appropriately by warning the group, contacting emergency services, remaining on high ground, documenting conditions, and providing safe assistance without entering the current appropriately. I printed that word. I placed the report in a folder. Mike labeled the folder anti-gaslight binder. Professor Harper crossed that out and wrote, incident record. Mike whispered, she fears branding. Graduation was delayed by 2 days because of the storm. The campus changed in those 48 hours. In my first life, the delay had been filled with rumors about me. This time, it was filled with arguments about Derek. Some people defended him. Of course they did. Rich boys always have people willing to turn recklessness into pressure, arrogance into confidence, consequences into tragedy. But the videos made it harder. Video is not perfect. It can be framed, cut, weaponized. But clear video, official reports, 911 calls, and firefighter statements together create weight. Derek could still complain. He could not erase. The finance firm that had offered him a postgraduate analyst position requested the incident file. 3 days later, his start date was deferred pending internal review. A week later, the offer was withdrawn. His father tried to push Northbridge to soften its student conduct language. President Marsh refused after Professor Harper sent a memo warning that donor interference in a public safety review would trigger formal faculty senate escalation. I did not see the memo. Mike claimed it was the written equivalent of a brick through a country club window. Professor Harper said that was inaccurate. Mike asked if it was emotionally accurate. She did not answer. That meant yes. Audrey asked to see me after the report came out. I refused. She asked again. I refused. The third time, she waited outside Lab C. That was the same place she had waited in my first life after the investigation finally cleared me, months too late, crying and saying she had been scared this time. She arrived before the lie fully grew. That mattered. She stood near the glass doors with a bandage on her arm and a limp that would heal faster than mine ever had. Her hair was tied back. Her face was pale. She looked smaller without Derek beside her. Ethan, she said. I stopped several feet away. You should be resting. She swallowed. I wanted to thank you. I said nothing. For calling rescue. I nodded. And for throwing the rope. You didn't take it. Her eyes filled. I know. Silence. Then she said the word I had been waiting for across 2 lives. I was scared. The first time she said that word, years too late, it had felt like an insult. This time, I answered immediately. You were responsible. She flinched, then nodded. I know. That surprised me. She continued, voice shaking. I chose to stay when you told everyone to leave. I chose to get into Derek's car. I chose to let him take the service bridge. I chose to step out. I chose to run toward him after you told me not to. Still closer, and when he grabbed me, I realized he wasn't trying to save me. He was trying to use me to keep himself above water. That truth cost her something. I could see it. I said, yes. She cried. You saw. It's on video. Her face twisted. Of course. Not angry, ashamed. That was new too. She wiped her eyes. Derek says you wanted us to suffer. No, I said. I wanted trained rescuers to save you instead of dying with you. She looked at my knee, my whole knee, my unbroken body. Something in my face must have told her there was history she could not understand. Would you have gone in before? She asked. The question touched something deep and painful. In another life, I did. Yes, I said. Her tears fell harder. What changed? I believed you this time. She frowned. I continued. You chose him. You chose the car. You chose the bridge. You chose the current. I believe those choices belong to you. She covered her mouth. That hurt her more than anger would have, because anger would let her focus on me. Responsibility forced her to stand beside herself. I'm sorry, she whispered. I waited. I'm sorry I cheated. There it was, the first real word for it. I'm sorry I made you feel crazy for noticing. I'm sorry I let Derek mock you. I'm sorry I asked you to save him like your life was worth less than his. That was the one, the sentence I had needed in the first life and never received. I nodded. Thank you for saying it correctly. She cried quietly. Can you forgive me? Not today. She nodded like she expected that. Do you hate me? I thought about the water, the hospital, the hearing, the limp, the years. Then I looked at her now, alive, shaken, guilty, still selfish, maybe, but no longer holding my future underwater. No, I said, I'm just not willing to drown for you anymore. She closed her eyes. That was the end. Audrey withdrew from Derek's circle before graduation. Not dramatically, no public post. No speech, no performance. She simply stopped sitting beside him, stopped defending him. Stopped repeating his language, that made him angrier than any accusation. He tried to pull her back through guilt first, then charm, then threat. He told her she owed him because he almost died. She told him she almost died because he ignored every warning. That line reached me through Mike, who heard it from Amber, who heard it from someone in the residence hall. Mike delivered it like breaking news. She has developed a spine. Delayed installation, but operational. Don't be cruel. I am being cautiously optimistic. Derek did not attend graduation officially. He was recovering unofficially. His father did not want cameras on him while the conduct case remained active. Audrey attended. She crossed the stage with a bandage still visible on her wrist. The applause was polite, thinner than it would have been a week earlier. When my name was called, Professor Harper stood. Ethan Miller, College of Engineering. Highest distinction. Mike shouted. High ground. Several students laughed. President Marsh looked confused. Professor Harper looked tired. I smiled despite myself. After the ceremony, my parents found me near the engineering building. Mom hugged me so tightly my ribs hurt. "Do not ever make me watch a flood video again," she said. "I'll try." That is not a strong enough answer. Dad stood beside her, one hand on my shoulder. Dad was not loud with emotion. He had built Miller Global from machine shop contracts into a technology empire. But at home, he was quieter than people expected. He looked at me for a long moment. "You did well." I knew what he meant, not the degree, not the honors, the bank, the choice. "I didn't go in," I said. His hand tightened. "I know, in another version, I think I would have." Dad did not ask what that meant, he just said, "Then I'm grateful for this version." Mom started crying. That nearly broke me more than the flood. Professor Harper found me later near Lab C. "You handled the incident correctly," she said. "Thank you. I mean professionally." "I know." "No," she said, "you don't. Students think courage means entering danger. Sometimes courage means refusing to make yourself another casualty." I looked toward the distant mountains beyond campus. "I learned that the hard way." She studied me. "I believe you." That was all she said. It was enough. The summer after graduation, I stayed at Northbridge to work on my research project under Professor Harper. It was strange moving through campus after surviving a second version of an event that once destroyed me. The same paths, the same buildings, the same cafeteria, the same rain smell after storms, but I was different, not healed. Different. Healing is too clean a word for what happens after trauma repeats and finally fails to kill you. I still flinched at heavy rain. I still checked weather alerts too often. I still avoided the lower trail near the creek when I visited Silverpine County with the county engineers months later for a research site review. But my knee was whole. My shoulder was whole. My record was clean. My future remained open. That was enough. Audrey sent one message after the safety review closed. "I know you don't want contact. I just want you to know I told the university the truth. Derek wanted me to say you provoked him. I didn't. I should have chosen the truth earlier. I read it once, then archived it." No reply. Later, she sent another. "I'm transferring out of the graduate program here. I need to start somewhere I'm not still performing for people." I archived that too. Part of me wanted to say something. "Good luck. I hope you become better. I'm glad you told the truth." But I had learned that not every feeling needed action. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is leave a message unanswered. Derek's life did not end. People like Derek rarely vanish completely. His father moved him quietly into a smaller firm after the finance offer collapsed. His online presence changed. Less luxury, more reflection, more posts about resilience, leadership, and learning from adversity. Mike showed me one, adversity, he read aloud. "That's an interesting spelling of a warning cone." Don't reply. I wasn't going to. I looked at him. He sighed. I was considering a tasteful correction. "No." He deleted the draft. I was proud. The county installed a stronger barrier near the service bridge that fall. The campground manager sent me a photo, a metal gate, reflective warning sign, flood sensor tied to an automatic closure alert. Professor Harper forwarded the county's safety update with one line, "Useful outcome." That was her highest moral praise. Mike said, "You stopped a future idiot with infrastructure." Beautiful. I thought about that more than I expected. In my first life, the flood remained only a wound. In this life, it became a rule, a gate, a sensor, a report, a warning sign. Pain became procedure. Procedure protected strangers. That felt like justice in a way revenge never could. Years passed. The story softened in public memory. Students who were there graduated and moved away. The videos stopped circulating except when someone searched too deeply. Derek became a cautionary tale in student safety training. Though the university never used his name, Audrey became someone I used to know. I became a researcher who checked flood maps before site visits and insisted every field team carry rescue procedures, not just equipment. At my first major conference after graduate school, I gave a talk on infrastructure risk modeling for rural systems. During Can Day, an older engineer asked why I focused so much on human decision points around warnings. I looked at the slide behind me, a diagram of alert timing, road closure behavior, and risk escalation. I said, because most disasters are not just natural events, they are moments when people believe the warning is less important than what they want. The room went quiet, then the engineer nodded. After the talk, a young student approached me. He said, "That line about warnings, it sounded personal." I smiled faintly. "It is. Did you lose someone?" I thought about the first life, about myself. "Yes," I said, "but not in the way people usually mean." He did not understand. That was fine. Some truths are not meant to be fully explained. On the 5th anniversary of the flood, Audrey sent a letter, not a text, a letter. It arrived at my office in a plain envelope. Ethan, no, I don't have the right to reopen anything. I'm not asking for a reply. Today is 5 years since Silverpine. I still hear the water sometimes. For a long time, I told myself the worst moment was when Derek grabbed me. Then I told myself it was when the report came out. Then I thought it was when you looked at me outside Lab C and said you were not willing to drown for me anymore. Now I think the worst moment was earlier. It was when you warned us and I cared more about not looking foolish in front of Derek than staying alive. I have spent years trying to understand why I chose someone who used me when the water rose. The answer I keep reaching is ugly. I wanted his world to be real more than I wanted your warning to be true. You were right not to go in. I used to think that sentence meant you stopped loving me. Now I think it means you finally loved yourself enough to survive me. I am sorry, Audrey. I read the letter once, then again. I placed it in the incident folder, not as evidence, as history. Some apologies cannot repair, but they can mark the place where someone finally stops lying to themselves. That has value, limited value, but value. That evening, it rained. I stood by my office window and watched water run down the glass. My knee did not ache, my shoulder did not click. The body I had saved in this life stood whole. The record was clean. The river was far away. For the first time, the sound of rain did not feel like a warning. It felt like weather. Years later, people who heard the story still told it wrong. They said my girlfriend ran into a flood to save her lover and I watched coldly from the bank. They said it like coldness was the whole truth. Maybe part of it was. I was cold, cold enough not to mistake panic for duty. Cold enough not to let guilt drag me into moving water, cold enough to call rescue instead of becoming a second victim, cold enough to hold the camera steady while the old version of me screamed inside my ribs. But I did not watch because I wanted Audrey dead. I watched because I had already given one life to people who turned my sacrifice into a weapon. This time, I gave warning, I gave 9/11, I gave location. I gave rope, I gave evidence, I gave the professionals room to do what they were trained to do. I did not give my body. Audrey ran into the current for Derek because that was the love she chose. Derek grabbed her because that was the man he was. The rescuers saved them because that was their job, and I stayed on high ground because, finally, I understood mine. In my first life, I thought love meant jumping into the flood. In this life, I learned that sometimes survival means standing on the bank, holding the record steady, and letting the water reveal what people are when the current rises. The flood did not make Audrey betray me, it revealed the betrayal. The flood did not make Derek selfish, it stripped away the suit, the car, the smile, and left only the hand grabbing whatever would keep him above water. The flood did not make me cold, it taught me the difference between courage and self-destruction. And when the current came again, roaring brown under the broken sky, I finally chose not to drown in someone else's choice. That was not cruelty, that was rebirth.